Shalom, shalom everybody. I hope that you have your coffee, your beverage of choice and are ready for today's headlines with me, Rolene Marks, right here on the Israel Brief, brought to you as always by Lay of the Land, where we take a look at those top stories making headlines in Israel, and we do it every Monday to Thursday. Now today is day 193 of Israel's war with Hamas. If you think about it, in just a week's time, it will be 200 days, which means 200 days that over 130 hostages will have been held captive by Hamas terrorists in the most unbelievably horrific conditions. Bring them home now. As you can see, I always have my disc with me. Bring them home now. Lev shelanu shavui ba'aza. Our hearts are captive in Gaza. So let's take a look at those top stories, and the big story is Operation Iron Shield. That is the military name given to the spectacular defense on Saturday night by the Israeli Defense Array, along with our coalition partners, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Jordan, and admitting publicly yesterday, Saudi Arabia. A Saudi official with very close ties to the Saudi royal family told Kan, the Israel national broadcaster, that the Saudis have a system to shoot out incoming projectiles into their airspace, and said that Iran is behind the war in Gaza and needs to be stopped. Now, this is absolutely extraordinary. We believe that one of the many reasons that Hamas launched their attacks on the 7th of October, backed completely by the Iranians, was to scupper the peace agreements, the moves towards normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which will really transform the Middle East forever. So let's take a look at some other developments around that. And Israel's top general, the IDF Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, said last night that Israel will respond. Now, we don't know what that response will look like. Israel has many tools or instruments available. Will that be a kinetic response? In other words, will that be a strike on some kind of military asset? Or will it be cyber? Or will it be a strike on proxies? That will be determined by Israel's war cabinet, who are set to meet again later today. Meanwhile, the IDF Chief of Staff Halevi has thanked both CENTCOM and has spoken to and thanked the head of the United Kingdom's the defense or military, the Chief of Defense. And along with that, we have the diplomatic route, and Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz has written to and spoken to over 32 countries, foreign ministers, ambassadors, calling for tougher sanctions to be imposed on the Iranians. Tougher sanctions are a route that many are considering, including the United Kingdom, and publication Axios reporting earlier today that the United States is already preparing tougher sanctions against the Iranian regime. President Biden told Netanyahu to take the win. Now, there are many schools of thought. Some people say, okay, you have equalized, but we speak the language of the Middle East. And when Iran, who has been attacking us for decades now through their proxies, keeps attacking and did so in an unprecedented way on Saturday night, we need to cut the head off the snake and retaliate with a resounding blow against the regime. The White House Speaker John Kirby has said that the defeat was an embarrassing and spectacular failure for the Iranians, and has reiterated that while the United States will not join Israel in a retaliatory strike, they will not stop Israel either. And that is very telling language. Sometimes you have to really read into what is said, and sometimes into what is not said. Let's talk negotiations around the hostages. This is a very important topic here in Israel. we very much are still on the 7th of October and will not move forward until we have all our hostages home. This goes for those that, please God, are still alive, and the bodies of those who have been murdered. Hamas has now offered to free 20 hostages in exchange for a ceasefire. Now, this is half of what Israel is demanding. Israel is demanding the release of 40 hostages in the first phase of what could be a 6-week-long ceasefire. Hamas have turned that down. They demand the full withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. And for those who are saying ceasefire, you will note that Hamas has turned down 5 successive ceasefires. But I think that for those calling for a ceasefire are not appealing to Hamas. They know that Hamas are never going to agree to a ceasefire. They want the world to put tougher or be a lot more tough on Israel, express their dissatisfaction so that Israel ends the war. And that's not what you do when over 1,200 of your citizens have been massacred, raped and burnt alive, and over 250 of them taken hostage. Meanwhile, White House official John Kirby saying last night that Hamas remain an obstacle to a ceasefire. Across the United States and other parts of the world, a day of disruption was instigated by pro-Palestinian advocates. The scenes coming from O'Hare Airport in Chicago were actually quite disturbing. The cars stopped for miles where travelers had to get out of their cars and haul their luggage across the road and walk to the airport. There were similar scenes in San Francisco where the Golden Gate Bridge was shut down, and in New York City where there were disruptions on Wall Street and the Brooklyn Bridge was shut down. Also in cities across the United States like Philadelphia, Miami, Chicago, notable disruptions there as well. I just say keep going, guys, because you're not convincing anybody of your side. In fact, you're putting people right off your cause. And finally, a very, very distressing bit of content, and this might be highly, highly triggering for some of you out there. And that is testimony given in the Knesset today. This was a special session to discuss mental health and the mental health fallout around the October the 7th massacres. A Nova Festival survivor said that many of them are struggling to move on with their lives. He said that he had heard that there had been at least 50 suicides based on numbers 2 months before. Now, a official from the Ministry of Health was quick to correct that, saying while there had been some suicides, the number was not near 50. It doesn't matter how many there were. This is the mental health, and this is the devastation that follows the atrocities of the 7th of October. This is why we need to keep talking about it so that the world doesn't forget the events that led to this war we now have with Hamas, and why Israel needs to deal a harsh blow to Iran for once and for all. So this brings me to the end of today's edition of the Israel Brief. Please don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook community is at Lottel Site. Our YouTube channel is at the Israel Brief, and we are on X at Lay of the Land 5. Guys, now more than ever, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will be back with you for your headlines tomorrow. God bless.